All right, let's dive into something massive that's just happened on the world stage. India and the European Union have just signed a landmark trade deal, and people are already calling it the mother of all deals. Today, we're going to unpack what that actually means for these two economic giants.
Yeah, when you hear a trade agreement described with a phrase like that, you know it's a big one. This isn't just about some minor tweaks to import taxes. We're talking about a fundamental redesign of the entire economic relationship between two global powerhouses.
And just to give you a sense of the scale we're dealing with, that number right there, $27 trillion. That's the combined market size this deal connects. It basically gives India a golden key to the entire 27-country economic bloc of the European Union. It's huge.
So what is this thing really? Well, at its core, it's what's known as a free trade agreement, or an FTA. And put simply, it's just a new rulebook designed to make it way easier and cheaper for India and the EU to do business with each other. But to really get why this is such a big deal, you have to look at the incredibly long and bumpy road it took to get here.
Trust me, this did not happen overnight. I mean, look at this timeline. Talks first kicked off way back in 2007. Then they completely stalled out for almost a decade, dead in the water. So, after relaunching in 2022, finally getting this thing across the finish line in 2026, well, that's a massive win for everyone involved.
So let's pop the hood and see what's actually inside this agreement. The whole thing is really built on three core pillars. Think of it like a three-legged stool. Each one is essential to making the whole thing work. Let's break them down one by one. Okay, first up, the most obvious one, slashing tariffs. These are basically just taxes on stuff you import. Second, it's opening up the services sector. We're talking IT, finance, consulting, which, as you know, is a massive strength for India. And third, and this one's super important, it's about aligning rules and standards. This gets rid of all those annoying hidden barriers, like different safety regulations that can stop trade in its tracks.
Now, as we get into the details, you're going to hear the term tariff lines. It sounds a little technical, I know, but it's really simple. It just means all the different categories of products a country can tax. Think of it like a giant, super detailed shopping catalog for an entire country's imports.
And just look at these numbers. This is where it gets crazy. The EU is getting rid of tariffs on over 90% of everything it buys from India, and India is dropping tariffs on about 86% of what it buys from the EU. This is, without a doubt, one of the most ambitious trade deals India has ever signed with the developed world.
And if you want a perfect example of how dramatic this is, just look at European cars. For years, if you wanted to import one into India, you were looking at a tariff of around 110%. Just insane. Under this new deal, that's going to be phased down to just 10%. That's a total game changer for car makers in Europe and, of course, for Indian consumers who want more choice.
So in return for opening up its car market, India's key sectors get almost duty-free access to that huge EU market. And we're talking about major job-creating industries here. Textiles, leather goods, engineering products, the real backbone of Indian manufacturing. But, and this is a really important but, this open-door policy did not apply to everything. Both sides basically drew a big red line around agriculture. So while industrial goods see this huge opening, sensitive areas like raw agricultural products and dairy, well, those remain pretty well protected on both sides.
All right, so with any deal this massive, you're going to have clear winners, and you're going to have some sectors that are suddenly facing some really stiff competition. So let's do a quick breakdown of who's popping the champagne and who's probably a little bit worried.
This table really tells the story. For India, it's a huge win for textiles and IT services. For the EU, no question, it's the car industry. And you can see the flip side, right? While Indian consumers get cheaper European cars, some of the high-end Indian car makers are definitely going to feel the heat. That's just what happens when markets open up.
So let's zoom out from the specific sectors for a minute. What does this all mean for India's economy as a whole? Because the potential here is way bigger than just a few trade statistics. We could be looking at a major shift in the entire economic landscape.
The early estimates suggest that Indian exports worth around $80 billion every year will now get special, preferential access to the EU. That is a massive boost to the country's export earnings and a really significant injection of cash into the overall economy.
But here's what's so crucial. It's where that growth is coming from. A lot of the benefits are packed into these labor-intensive sectors, textiles, leather, engineering, many of which are full of small and medium-sized businesses, the MSMEs. Because it's so focused on these job-rich areas, the deal is being seen as a potential engine for huge employment growth.
And it goes beyond just direct exports. This deal is expected to be like rocket fuel for India's Make in India initiative. With lower tariffs and much clearer rules, India suddenly becomes a way more attractive place for European companies to come, invest, and set up their factories, bringing in capital and all that cutting-edge technology.
But you know, this deal is about so much more than just money. It really represents a major strategic realignment. It's like a new chapter is being written in the global economic playbook for both India and the European Union.
You have to look at the geopolitics here. For years and years, the world's manufacturing has been incredibly dependent on supply chains that all run through China. This deal is a very deliberate, very strategic move by both India and the EU to de-risk and diversify. They're building a more resilient, more balanced global trade network with each other right at the heart of it.
So after nearly 2 decades of talks that started and stopped and started again, this agreement is finally a reality. It promises to boost exports, create millions of jobs, and totally reposition India on the world stage. All the pieces are there, but the big question, the one everyone is asking, is this: will this be the landmark deal that truly defines India's economic future for the next generation?